Hello and welcome to another game with the white pieces. E4, E5, we'll play knight C3, the Vienna game. This is already a mistake from my opponent. What's happening here? What's happening? Is my opponent planning this? And after captures, maybe knight F6? Because that would be a mistake. We can go ahead and capture here. Yep, and after knight F6, my opponent has overlooked the fact that I will be capturing the rook. We'll go for a quick attack on the knight. I want to be careful not to get this queen trapped, but I don't think I'm in danger of that anytime soon. Bring the bishop in. Bishop won't be recapturing because it is still pinned to the king. So we trade off our queens and deliver another quick check. And now we simply enjoy a significant material lead, and we can just start pushing these pawns up the board, looking to trade off more pieces as we go. Looking at both of these squares for my knight, certainly wanting to prevent my opponent's knight from getting in here and pulling off any tricky forks. This looks like a good square for my knight. This looks like a good square for my knight. I mean, the more pieces we can trade off at this point, the better. Okay. Where is my opponent going? Maybe looking for the F4 square. If my opponent hops into F4 and I push G3, there are any tricks there? Not entirely sure. I could simply, well, no, that would hang my knight. I don't want to play that. Let's go for a simple break in the center. Okay. We'll take the pawn. And if my opponent recaptures this well, we'll be taking this pawn as well. Okay, so I don't see this knight as being much of a threat, so I'll just go ahead and maneuver this knight out the way. Or I just attack my opponent's knight, saying, you know, if you take my knight, I'm going to take yours. Let's do that. And if my opponent retreats, I'll be capturing here, and then I will block the rook's vision of my f3. knight. Yep. Okay. So if my opponent wins this pawn, I will be picking up this pawn. I am free to take this pawn right now, hitting my opponent's bishop. So we will go ahead and do that. And I think we simply have checkmate. Like this. Okay, nice and easy. My opponent wants a rematch. We'll be kind. We'll be kind. So they play d4. Let's go for the Dutch. This seems to me to be a slight inaccuracy. Usually white wants to push e4 in one go. And if they're not fianchettoing their bishop on g2, we should be fianchettoing ours on b7. I'm thinking maybe if I play this, evoking d5, then I have knight to b4, forking the bishop and the queen and winning the light squared bishop. I'm also noticing that due to the position of my opponent's queen and bishop here, simply capturing on f3 rips open my opponent's king, and that looks pretty strong, so we'll go ahead and do that. And now we will play knight c6. I'm going to be looking to try and get an e5 break, and as I say, if my opponent plays d5, we will be hopping my knight into b4 and swiping their bishop off the board. I can actually go ahead and do that now. This is a relatively weak piece. So is their bishop, but if they push this pawn, then maybe things could start to open up for their bishop, and I'd have both bishops, very strong pieces looking towards my king, which I don't particularly want, while my opponent might be able to start working with an open G file. So I'm thinking of breaking in the center here, something like this. My opponent might do something like this. Then would I have, let's imagine this captures, captures, captures. Say they do push here, captures, captures. This would be a very tender spot. I like the idea of this, because bishop d6 also looks like a well-positioned piece. So my opponent eyeing up the g-file already. If I capture here, I can pull their queen away from this diagonal at a moment's notice. We have to anticipate my opponent pushing here in order to facilitate sliding their bishop to h6. But if they play here and I capture and they recapture and I recapture, recaptures, recaptures. All of these pawn recaptures would come with an attack on the queen. That's why my opponent wouldn't be able to make use of this immediately. But yeah, I wonder. I wonder whether simply playing rook f7 solves this issue preemptively. We'll go here, we'll pre-move this, and after the knight recaptures. Okay, so notice that after this, this, whichever piece captures, this pawn will be hanging, and if the bishop comes down, the pawn no longer hangs. Okay, fine. But if I play here, captures, captures. Let's say my opponent goes after the pawn. I play queen h4. My opponent plays rook g2. I play rook f8. That looks pretty strong. What if I trade here first? Then play this? This pawn hangs. This pawn is hanging now. My opponent could capture here now, pinning the rook, which would allow this, actually. So I wonder if I play queen. Simply this, queen takes. Then this is hanging, so rook g3, so bishop h4. That looks good. That looks pretty good. Got to get some protein. That's what that delicious looking brown fluid is all about. Okay, so doubling up my rooks. So I'm expecting my opponent to push. Oh, no, but now they will push. That makes sense. But then the bishop. And rook here takes. Yeah, they lose the pawn. I'm pretty sure. Even after rook g4, I can simply take f4, takes. My opponent will probably then swing either to the g file or to the e file. Okay, so captures here. My opponent wants to play here. They're attacking this immediately. Let's reinforce this. Push g3 and go after this weakness. Not g3, g6, what am I talking about? I've got the board backwards in my head. Take here. Even if my opponent advances the pawn, I'm winning the piece. And that looks like a one-pawn lead. Okay, so this is what my opponent wants. Are they fast enough? Here. My opponent plays here. I play here. My opponent plays there. Well, here. I'm checking and coming down and winning the pawn. But then my opponent takes and this. So takes. They push the pawn. I check. The king moves out the way. That disconnects the rooks. So I can take the pawn. That's the sequence of moves then, isn't it? I think so. We're expecting this. And I think what my opponent will overlook is that after I check on h4, their king must step onto the g file. And when they do so, I can take the pawn without worrying about any kind of tricky pin. They will get a discovered check now, though. But I don't think that matters. I'm hitting this pawn. So stepping out this way. If I step here, we can only assume my opponent's going to play one of these two moves, perhaps this. So I think my king should creep out. I'm up 2 pawns, so I think I can afford to give back one of them. And if I can trade rooks here, interesting. So if my opponent takes this pawn, I'm taking here, hitting the rook. The rook would have to leave, and then I'd be winning this pawn. So if I play here and my opponent takes this rook, and I play that, it doesn't work. So, if I step my king up, and my opponent plays king h4, and I play h6, and my opponent takes here, I can't play here because with their king on h4 they'd get this check for free. So I think I have to play h6 now, forcing the rook over, coming here, attacking the rook, and leaving this pawn free with an attack on this pawn. So my opponent will want to come to e7, but I don't think they're fast enough, because after takes, e7, takes, they would target this pawn. I think I'm still so many pawns up there that we're fine. Yeah, we will expect rook e7 now. Ah, very good. Why did I not see that? I think we're still fine though. Because after my opponent captures this pawn, I'm still winning this pawn. And then I can play here, pinning. If my opponent moves here to attack here, I can play a3, pinning the c3 pawn to my opponent's king. Which I think I can go ahead and do now anyway. And maybe start walking my h pawn up the board. Also, simply walking my b pawn up the board looks good, because this always comes with check. I don't know, time is running low, but advancing this outside pass pawn seems like a fairly straightforward plan. I think I walk my king up the board, and I think we just do this and my pawn's unstoppable. Yeah. We just walk down the board like this now towards my opponent's rook. And I'm a queen up. So, well, this is actually very quickly going to lead to checkmate. Wonderful, beautiful dovetail mate there. All right, let's have a quick look at the analysis of that second game. The Dutch, I'm not sure whether this... Yeah, this was absolutely the right idea. I mean, any chance to just tear open your opponent's kingside is good. I'm glad to see that this fork was the right idea too, snapping off. And d5 too, I played this very well. c6 would have been nice, actually. I realised later that perhaps that was a move I'd wanted to play. This rook f7 manoeuvre is maybe a little bit premature. My opponent really hadn't telegraphed that that was their plan, but I thought it might be, and taking here, absolutely the right idea. Look at my opponent's pawn structure now with 1, 2, 3, 4 pawn islands. A set of doubled isolated pawns here, an isolated pawn here, an isolated pawn here. And neither of their two connected central pawns are even passed, so this was very nice for me indeed. Ah, the pawn was simply hanging. Of course it was. Of course it was. It's maybe playing a bit too quickly, but not to worry. We picked up the piece anyway, and yes, this is just simply a mistake. I could have gone after this pawn, but I don't know. I thought after this could get maybe a little bit troubling. I thought the simplest way to go about things was just to win the extra pawn and look at giving it back. Yes, this is absolutely the right idea. I think if I had played this, then my opponent would have had king h4, and then after this, I can't threaten. I overlooked the fact that my pawn would have been covering this square. This actually would have worked quite nicely as well. But h6 certainly works, and now we're just picking up more and more pieces. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and as always, I will see you in the next one.